I'm Paul Samuel Dolman, and this is What Matters Most, a 100% listener-supported worldwide podcast. Welcome back to What Matters Most, beautiful people around the world. We have a really cool show today with a great guest, very inspired, tuned-in young man. He has a fascinating website called The Portal to Ascension. So excited to welcome to the family Mr. Neil Gaur. Thanks for coming on, my brother.
Awesome, Paul. Thank you so much for having me, brother.
Neil, do you want to let the people out there know a little bit about your background, your transformation? You started out in a Hindu family and then where you ended up?
Well, I was born in England and I moved to California when I was 12. And I was raised in a Hindu family. I'm Indian. And I grew up with all these rites and rituals. I did everything that my parents basically told me to do. I didn't really think about it. And I feel a lot of people do that right now as well. A lot of young people just follow the rites and rituals. They don't really truly believe or even like attend church religiously or something. And I had this same kind of feeling, but I was Hindu. I'm like an Indian Hindu kid being raised in California. And but I always had this kind of like connection and these thoughts of like the universe and just like what's beyond everything. I was really into planets, astronomy, and all that. And for pretty much stayed with the Hindu tradition and did what my mom told me until I was 18 in 2000. And then in 2000, when I went to college and I got introduced to lots of different range of music that I'd never been into before, like psychedelic rock. I was with friends from all over the world, that just a lot of new topics. So during that time, I started doing some research and I was writing poetry on like just spoken word poetry. And the poetry that I was writing really was looking into and really discussing divine concepts of like, why are we here, quantum physics, extraterrestrials, like made up stories about these beings. While I was writing the poetry, I was on YouTube as well, and I was searching different videos and keywords for what I was basically writing about. And that's how I discovered a world of information from the four individuals: Nassim Haramein, Jim Self, Jordan Maxwell, and David Wolcott at that time. And through the information that I discovered, I found information on the Sumerian tablets of creation, the 7 tablets. And these concepts and the information that was being discussed was quantum physics. And then through Jordan Maxwell, him talking about the Sumerians and these events, civilizations of extraterrestrials that were visiting the planet, I started doing some research, and I literally had like the Bible. I would have the Hindu Bible, the Quran, and I would look and compare a lot of similarities. And I realized that a lot of religion, there's so many similarities. There's similar stories. Some of the stories are the same exact stories, but all over the world, you hear people talking about all the division, what makes these religions different. But why isn't anybody talking about what makes everything connected? And when I discovered the Sumerian scriptures, I realized that a lot of these stories that were in every religion in the world, from Hinduism, Judaism, Christianity, Islam, and many, many more, had the exact same stories, but the original text was the Sumerian text that it seems that all these religions took from. And the Sumerian scriptures were discussing extraterrestrials and these beings called the Anunnaki that were visiting from the heavens and coming to Earth. They had stories like the Epic of Gilgamesh, in which we were talking about, which is the story of Noah and the Great Flood. So at that point, it was kind of like a mind explosion to me. Like, it blew my mind to realize that either every religion in the world is completely incorrect because it comes from these ancient scriptures talking about aliens, or everything comes from these extraterrestrial beings or these stories about divine beings visiting the earth. And that truly was my introduction to everything. And for 8 years, for the next 8 years, 2000 and 2008, I was going down the rabbit hole of information where I discovered things about the Illuminati, about, everything from GMOs to like crazy conspiracies of what's been happening in the world, to the Federal Reserve, the corruption, and how we don't own our money in the U.S. And it really took me down kind of like this rabbit hole of darkness for a while, where I was like lost in the conspiracy.
People don't know a lot about the Sumerians. They were extremely advanced, and they were at least about 50,000 years ahead of the time of Jesus, if I recall.
Yeah, exactly. And the Sumerian scriptures basically talk about these beings that would that were the 10th planet in our solar system. That there's 9 planets, including the sun, and then the 10th planet had an elliptical orbit around our sun. So we did not see it in the regular rotation of all the planets because it had an elliptical orbit as opposed to our, let's just say our flat orbit, even though it's not really flat. And they would say that every 3,600 years, this planet would come in between Earth and Mars, and these beings would come and visit our planet and mine for gold and then take it back to their planet and spray it in the atmosphere, because when they were really far away from the sun, it would be so cold on that planet. The gold has this insulating effect where it retains heat when you create monatomic gold and put it in the atmosphere. So when I heard this information and I started looking at the other parts of the scriptures, such as they had a map of the solar system in one of the Sumerian tablets, in which it had the exact dimensions to scale of our solar system and the positions of the planets. Like, it wasn't just an artist's interpretation of the solar system, it was exactly as we've found it now. So all of this information led me to realize that they were talking about something that was beyond this reality, but was also a science, and that science was quantum physics. So quantum physics, vibration, and frequency was always used. And so I went down that, and I was really into the ETs for quite some time. And 2008, I was at an open mic, and I was really in a dark place. And I basically met one of my best friends, who was my friend for a while after that, and then a lot of other individuals that were artists, poets. And from that day onwards, I had this realization where I shifted from conspiracies and darkness to the one thing I was missing. Like, I knew there was one thing that I was missing, and I didn't know what it was, because I was aware of all of this information, all of these conspiracies, the history of the planet, the galactic history of the planet, but I wasn't really like empowered by it. And then I realized the one thing I was missing was love, the spiritual component. So in 2008, in summer of 2008, is when Portal to Ascension, my organization, was born. And it was synchronistically at the same time that I discovered that it was all love. And when I realized everything was love, that's when I stopped looking at everything as being a victim of these people doing these things. And I started having more compassion for people, showing the bigger picture, exposing truth and lies and manipulation and corruption, but funneling it into the bigger picture of why these things are happening, and, you know, the cycles of time and all that. That's my story in a nutshell.
That was ironically my big breakthrough, even though I still struggle with it too, because I hate to see oppression, manipulation, domination. But ultimately behind it all is love. Before we go some more in those directions, talk a little bit about extraterrestrials and also interdimensionals beings. And have you had personal encounters? I mean, maybe perhaps in dreams. I'm not saying abducted or we were out in the field off of Sedona. Maybe you have. But there's a lot of ways that these beings can come and give you downloads, interact. They're also telepathic. It's not like the old-fashioned, it's like, you know, the same way we have cell phones now without wires. A couple hundred years ago, you needed to talk to somebody in person. But actually, these beings are so advanced, they're civilizations, that they can interact and contact, have communication with us in a number of ways. Talk about what you personally have experienced.
I haven't had a conscious, intentional, or just a conscious interaction with an extraterrestrial being, as in like, yeah, this one time this being came down and I saw him and this is what happened, right? But I have now come into the awareness and really owning the fact that I'm being guided in some way. And definitely the way, for example, when Portal to Ascension was first created, it was called 2012 Mind, Evolution, and Presence. And that was the name of a Facebook group. I created a Facebook group in 2006, and then 2 years later it became Portal to Ascension. And thousands of people started joining and talking about these topics. And over a period of 2 years, from 2006 to 2008, I changed the name because I was realizing, it wasn't about the mind, create just cosmic consciousness, evolution of consciousness. I kept changing the name until summer of 2008, where I had a dream that told me to change the name to Portal to Ascension. And like, that's part of my story that I tell people. And it's really, I know that that was definitely meant to be. And the name Portal to Ascension is 100% represents what we are. And it came to me in a weird synchronistic manner. So I've had different things like that happen. I've had alignments with presenters, archaeologists, quantum physicists that are synchronistic, that I know things are being directed in my way, that I'm supposed to do this. And I also know that part of my experience was really not having to have these intentional meetings with different beings, but to have 100% faith in myself and what the mission is, and just do it, And the more I'm with it 100% like that, the more confident I get in it, the more I feel that I'm open to these experiences.
They're pretty intimately involved with the human experiment, yes?
Yes, so let's talk about extraterrestrials and interdimensionals now. So, in regards to the history of extraterrestrials, from my understanding, from everything that I've come across, is that humankind and our species are interconnected on every level to extraterrestrial and interdimensional civilizations. That it seems that Earth is a library of information, a library of awareness that has almost every single DNA represented from all the beings in our galaxy. That most planets in the galaxy have 1-2 civilizations on it, maybe have some animal life and a sentient being on it, maybe live in different dimensions where they exist by themselves, it might be pure energy where they exist by themselves. Earth is a library of like not even hundreds of thousands, but millions of species. This is unprecedented. This doesn't happen all the time like this. There are third dimensional realities and third dimensional worlds that exist. There's one similar to Earth, but the conditions in the third dimensional reality have to be such that life can really thrive like we are in Earth. But when you get into higher dimensions, life can thrive without those limitations that we have in restrictions, such as needing a certain amount of sun, needing a certain amount of things to consume, right? They can live off different things. Like once you go to the fifth dimension, for example, you can become quasi-physical. And when you're quasi-physical, you're half light, half physical, and a lot of the needs of the physical body no longer exist. So, and now in regards to our history, it looks like that there were multiple beings at different points of time that have come down to this planet and experimented with the native population. And humanoids such as ourselves have lived on this planet for hundreds of thousands of years, more than widely accepted. And there were other humanoid species that even existed on this planet while we were existing with them. Like we coexisted with 1 or 2 different humanoids that we couldn't even really have children with, but were also sentient at different points in time. So this is the information that we have on our platform. Basically, we work with a lot of people that do presentations, full-on presentations that show information and evidence that all of this is real.
Do you feel that some of these beings might have helped design the pyramids or been involved in other civilizations like Atlantis or Lemuria, or have imported technology to us?
Pyramids are definitely connected to extraterrestrials in either that they're energy creating devices, they're sound harmonic chambers, they send signals into space. And like for the Pyramid of Giza, for example, I wish I knew the exact numbers, but basically the amount of bricks, or let's just say bricks, that it took to create the pyramids on the Giza Plateau are the same amount of light years from Sirius to Earth.
Well, there's also a spaceship literally carved into the stone with a technology that we don't possess.
Yeah, exactly. And that with that spaceship that you're talking about, I've spoke to people, and they take people to the to that area, and they deliberately, when they do tours, do not ever mention or show that area. They literally walk, because it's on top of a door at the top of the roof, and what happened was a slab fell off and it exposed it. And they never recognize it. They don't tell anybody. They walk right through it because they don't want people thinking like, wait a second, it looks like a helicopter.
Yeah, and they can't figure out a lot of stuff. They found carved stones in Central America, South America, and then there's Stonehenge, I think, which is a different thing. It really feels like guys like us and a lot of people are just hybrids. And you look at the people from the earth, they're very dark, they look like dirt, and they're native, and they lived in very sustainable, non-hierarchy type situations. Then all of a sudden you got white male hierarchy coming in, and we have a different system, and it's a whole different, looks like a playground for evolution of consciousness. And like when galaxies created, it's nasty, it can be destructive. But this does sort of seem like some sort of cosmic free-for-all down here. Just look at, politics and shit. And that's all feels like a big sideshow. The Anunnaki, talk about what you know about them, because I keep hearing different things about them too. They were great creators.
Yeah, so there's people that feel that they were positive beings, and some people think they were here for a negative reason. Some people say that they came down and enslaved us. The most common narrative is that they came down, they genetically mutated the Cro-Magnon being on the planet at that time, and they made Pro-Magnon, which is us. And there were a few experiments. People say Bigfoot and other like elemental beings and things were actually products of the Anunnaki's first tests, where they were trying to create a being that would have strength and power and be able to think for itself, but wouldn't be sentient, that it could actually like be another sentient being, because they were able to get away in this in this universe of free will, of creating that type of android, organic android, but they couldn't create a sentient being. Over time, this is the mainstream narrative. There are many different people that think differently. Some say that they came down to Earth and they were actually they needed assistance for mining gold, and they just employed the assistance of a being that they created, but it wasn't trying to make a slave race, because they humbly needed this gold for the planet, right? And then through over time, the native population, which would be us, revolted, and there were two tiers of gods for the Anunnaki. There was the Igigi, or some people say the Ijiji, and there were the Anunnaki. The Igigi were the demigods. So if we look at Greek mythology now, if we want to compare them, because those were technically Anunnakis, Zeus is a god, Hercules is a demigod. Demigod is it's kind of a good comparison, but not really, because the Igigi were still from a different planet. They weren't really half human, but they weren't like fully enlightened beings or divine beings or whatever the Anunnaki were. And the Igigi were the ones working on Earth. They were the slave drivers. So if you think of like the slave drivers in ancient Egypt, with the whips and making sure that the humans were doing their thing, they were here on Earth, and the Anunnaki were in the heavens in their spacecraft, and they would only come down to Earth every now and then, such as Enlil and Enki and these different beings throughout other traditions in the world that were here on the planet and ruled over us. But they directly weren't here. When the humans revolted, the Anunnaki left Earth, and they abandoned the Igigi. The Igigi stayed on the planet and became what we now know as the bloodline. They mated with the daughters of men. So let's relate it to the Bible now. The Igigi were the fallen angels, and the Anunnaki were gods. This is the comparison to the Christian and Jewish Bible. The fallen angels stayed on Earth, and what did the fallen angels do in the Bible? They mated with the daughters of men. Who were the daughters of men? Those are the women on our planet. What did they create as offspring? They created the Nephilim. The Nephilim were the giants and the Titans in Greek mythology. So then throughout time, these beings continued mating with humanity and eventually became a part of the populace and looked exactly like us. And the bloodline carried all the way from the Anunnaki times up until present time, and have been the bloodline of infiltration that is the power elite that now rules the world. That's the Anunnaki story.
Wow, wow, wow. It's pretty amazing, too, when you go down into these different portals. Have you read a book called The Prism of Lyra?
Oh, my God. I love that book. It's one of my favorite books.
Not many people have read it.
That's crazy that you read it. I tell everybody they should read it. I can't believe you read it.
Yeah, I've been touched by these guys, too. So when I don't talk about this a ton, but why not? We'll put it out there. The whole world can hear it. I was living in the woods, and I felt these beings around me, and I thought I might be losing my mind. And so I was also going deep and learning all this stuff and getting downloads and dreams. And then a very she's sort of famous psychic from England I'd never met, somehow found me through the internet, contacted me, and was sent by these beings and told me there'd be all these signs that then happened. She never wanted a penny. She couldn't have known anything. I wasn't like on the internet then, like, profiles. I had no shows or hadn't written any books. And then one of the books she always suggested, was The Prism of Lyra, and also We Are the Arcturians. Neil, do you think there'll be an intergalactic intervention for the greater good, where they kind of come down like in Arthur Clarke's book Childhood's End and just kind of help us get to the next level?
I used to think that that's going to happen. I used to think that before 2012, and now I think that it's happening in slower than we thought it would happen, and it's going to be in a way where there's communication with certain populations of people, certain communities. The world's getting so divided but the division is part of the prophecy, if you want to call it that. The division is that the prophecy is that when the world is at its farthest place of duality is when we're going to ascend to the next dimension. And it's like the rubber band effect that Bashar calls it, the rubber band effect, where you pull the rubber band back so far into duality, but when you let go of it, it springs forward into the light. And what's happening right now is that the division of people's separate belief systems and what they collectively chose to really leave this reality with is being created on the planet on an unprecedented level, and politics is a perfect example of that. And people are going to start creating their own communities worldwide where they can actually live and do things that, like, for example, grow organic food without getting in trouble, have raw milk in Venice without being shut down. Like, these things happen. And when they're able to have their own contact, like communication with ETs, some people are going to have CE5s where they're going to be sitting down, meditating, attempting to connect with them. Some beings have agreements with different beings and people where they're going to communicate. So it's going to happen on an individual level at first, and then maybe in groups. But a mass disclosure level where there are all these power structures that rule the planet that have an agenda that does not allow for that to happen in a harmonic, peaceful way, they're not going to do it. Just come to the planet and just be like, hey, we're here. I wish it could happen. It still could happen. They are definitely out there. The Earth is no longer under quarantine, meaning that we were an off-limits planet for quite some time, and we're not like that anymore. So we are now able to have this communication with these beings. But whether we're ready to accept it collectively or not, I don't know about that.
Just a quick moment here to remind you that we are 100% listener supported. So if you go to patreon.com/whatmattersmost, you can contribute any size you wish, from $5 a month to $100 a month. Hey, you can even become an associate producer like Angel Kim. So if you love the show, if you want to see us do more, support us in any way. Your contribution matters. Much love. Now back to our fantastic guest. Beings that are really high are very careful to not intervene in the conscious path and evolution of any other being or species. And ultimately, Neil, everything's just energy and vibration in different levels. Right, brother?
Yeah, exactly. Exactly, man. A lot of beings, like, another element to why they don't interact with us right now is that the higher in dimension you go, the less you interfere with lower realities, because the more you're aware that everything is playing out as it should.
Because they realize there is a divine intelligence and a divine order to everything.
Yeah, exactly. So, like, the ones that are interfering with us are ones that are close to our dimension, or in between dimensions, different astral levels, even, that aren't at that level of realizing that, and they're attempting to manipulate reality to get specific goals from it.
Yeah, when I tried to help people, as well intended as I might have been, it didn't work. It's easier to try to empower or just allow and witness, and subtly help little things, but encourage, because let that soul have its experience is what I keep getting over and over again, rather than, here, I'll fix it for you, because then they don't learn, the being doesn't evolve. Often they resent, and that's what a lot of people would probably do now. Do you see the 1111 a lot? Do you have any thoughts or know anything about that?
Yeah, I mean, I give it enough attention where I'm like, oh, like, I'll recognize the synchronistic numbers, and I'm always like in the awareness that it's showing me on the divine path and where I'm going. And I feel that people may have different numbers. We have signs around us all the time, and we can use them to empower us or not. But I feel like when I see that, like, sometimes, like, I see 222 and 333, then 444, then 555, and then and not 666, because that does not exist. But yeah, I would see like all of those back to back, and I'd be like how crazy! Like, at each one of those moments, I would be doing something that was, like, important for that hour.
That's what it's been for me. I got that it might be an awakening code on some DNA level, but mostly that it's just right on the path. And then ultimately, I asked, and it said, it's all one. And I said, oh God, yeah, it's just all one. How simple is that? It is all one, isn't it? Isn't it really just one consciousness playing with itself, and it's all divided but not really, and it's just one beautiful consciousness.
Yep, exactly.
What's it like for you to live in this state yet be in this world?
I feel like I live in this world pretty well. I've always enjoyed the fact that I'm able to convey this information to people that don't know about it. And part of what Portal to Ascension is not just because Portal to Ascension, we can get into what we actually do in our productions, but Portal to Ascension, we are the one-stop shop for consciousness, but also for people that are in this and are going to be the future teachers for what's to come. If you really want to get like a download of a lot of information, go to like hardcore training about everything like conscious that we can even fathom to put in here. Like our platform is for you. So next level teachers. But we also want to be able to create events where people that have no idea what's going on, they can go to this and they can get like everything from their level, like explaining Ascension in a scientific manner, for example, the quantum physics behind Ascension and the cycles of time and all that information. So I'm able to communicate with a lot of people and explain things. And the best way to explain extraterrestrials is through quantum physics, telling people vibration and frequency, how dimensions are different levels and how different beings can exist at those levels, exactly what you basically just said. And then tying it into how there's a reality around us and all these dimensions exist with us and these beings are here, but when you're in a higher dimension you can perceive everything below you, but when you're in a lower dimension you're limited to everything below you as well. You can't see things above you unless you raise that frequency, right? And that gets into meditation, yoga, eating well, vibrational foods, holistic healing. So it's like I found that route of vibration and frequency is what can allow people to accept all these new concepts that are coming.
And I see everything that is mass put out, all the mass media, the movies, the food, tries to make us less conscious, and it's not an accident.
Yep, exactly.
Disinformation. I tried to watch, I don't watch Game of Thrones. I went to a party for it the other night with some friends. It was so violent, I could feel it fucking up my energy.
It is violent. It is violent.
And I thought, that's not good for my brain and the news, which your mammal self's going to, react. Be like if somebody kept yelling, tiger behind you, you'd jump, your adrenals would be fucked up. Tiger, no way. Oh, okay. If we were in the jungle and you kept doing it, after a while, I'd throw a spear into you and say, fuck.
But don't switch off the radio show. If you like Game of Thrones, we still love you.
No, exactly right. And it's fun if it's entertainment. I like to watch all this stuff to go, and like politics, even though I get caught up in it because it's so, compelling. Same reason I follow sports sometimes or all kinds of narratives, because to me the whole thing is this fascinating experiment. Like, whoa, what's really going on? Then the other night I'm walking along the beach at midnight and the stars, and then I just was right there with all the big picture, and I felt connected to everything, and I could feel my highest or higher self just go, oh, here, and I was like, wow. And I was, thanks for creating this aspect of me. Because I knew it's like one little tiny viewing portal, no pun intended, to this big cosmic thing. And I think what you're doing with Portal is beautiful. And obviously you love to teach, don't you, and share. There's a sense of wanting to help that comes as you get a little higher in the vibrational scale, to serve.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I really do feel blessed because it's basically like I'm on YouTube every day watching the best videos that I ever wanted to watch, and I get to like, so I'm creating events and productions of all the information that I'm into, and it's really fun. And then at the same time, I get to give it to the masses. But because 75% of all our events are online through our webinar university, we are connected to people all over the planet in places where they wouldn't get this information. In the US, we're spoiled because we are like saturated with it. But then when you get to California, especially, you're even more spoiled because there's so much of this consciousness over here and so many events going on. But we get people, like I had an email from a family or a person from a family in India where the whole family would get together like a couple times a week and they would watch our events and webinars when they would have internet, because they wouldn't get internet all the time. I had an email from someone in Kazakhstan, random place in Kazakhstan, like thanking us for the events, because they completely don't get any of that information there. So it's allowed us to create a global conscious community that's interacted through our online platform. And we have like a members website where people can interact with each other, leave comments, watch their presentations, browse by category, browse by speaker. So, and we're just growing at this point.
What a beautiful service. Hey, what's your family of Hindu folks think of you now? Do they? Hopefully, they still love and talk to you.
No, well, so my mom and dad, like my sister, we all like we're a family, but at the same time, and we're connected and close, and we visit each other. We haven't like divided from our beliefs or anything, but at the same time, they don't really understand fully what we do, but they do know I do spiritual events, and my mom knows it's connected to Hinduism, and she feels like I'm like beyond Hinduism. She knows that Hinduism originally wasn't a religion and was a way of life that incorporated many religions, and even Christianity is in Hinduism, and Jesus they speak about Jesus in Hindu scriptures even. So she's like on that level of Hinduism, but they don't fully know like what disclosure is, what's going on with these ancient civilizations. They know we do history and ancient history webinars, and it's about things that haven't come out before, but they don't really know why we're doing that and what it's going to lead to.
Yeah, maybe that's better. Let them be where they are and just love them. And by the way, Jesus roamed around India and learned a ton of stuff, and they know him as Saint Isa.
Exactly.
Poor Jesus might be the world's most misunderstood figure.
Yeah, that's true.
And I love people burning crosses and hating and saying they're Christian. It's like if I hung out with a bunch of vegans who all they ate was meat. It's like, guys, you're going to have to get a new dictionary because that's not what that means. No, we know. It's the one true veganism. You eat meat. It's like, nah. No. Before I know we got to let you go somewhere, talk about how somebody can get more involved. Can they take the courses? Because if you're feeling this, wherever you are, if you've heard this, there's a reason. I feel like there are no coincidences. The universe is infinitely intelligent. And maybe this is an opportunity for you to get more in touch with your soul tribe, your ET tribe, your real family, and also to get more in touch and be tuned in and not feel like you're crazy and need help.
So in 2008, when we created Portal to Ascension, we started doing small meditation events, small sound healing events. Over the next 2 to 3 years, we toured up and down the coast, went to Canada, doing extraterrestrial channeling events and sound healing events. And in 2012, we did 2 big conferences, one for November 2012 and one in March of 2013. But for the last 4 years, we went 100% off, like stopped doing live events for a little while and went 100% online. Now we have this webinar university at portaltoascension.org where we do an event every single week, every weekend on a Saturday, sometimes during the week, with a range of speakers. We work with over 300 speakers. We've done over 1,000 events in the last 10 years. And at this point, every topic, we have sacred sexuality, we have something on nutrition coming up, we have something on geoengineering and how to combat the chemtrails and different things like that. We do all the events for Stephen Greer. We produce all of his events. We produce all of Michael Tellinger's events in the US. And you can go to our website, portaltoascension.org, and you can sign up at the opt-in thing right there. You enter your name and email. You'll get a login information, username and password, where you can access the back end of our website. And it will basically, the only way to really explain it is like the Netflix of consciousness, where not only can you browse by category, speaker, you can add things to your watch list, but you can view everything on our website and just go there for your one-stop shop for all things awareness. For just signing up on our website for free, you get over 5,000 hours of presentations, all categorized with thumbnails and everything for you, because we've done a lot of events. And then you can always register for any of our upcoming events that range from $33 to $44. And then that will also be stored into your backend. So that's portaltoascension.org. And then our other thing is the Portal to Ascension Conference, which is a second annual Portal to Ascension Conference, which is the main thing I really want to let everyone know about, is coming up in October 4th, 5th, and 6th of this year in Irvine, California. We have over 20 presenters. It's 3 days. We have 15 vendors, and we cover ancient history. We go into the true world history. We go into extraterrestrials and UFO disclosure, and then we also go into the evolution of consciousness, and not only provide scientific evidence that is happening, but also different tools and techniques that you can utilize in order to empower yourself. And then we have a lot of music too, sound healers and all that. So that's ascensionconference.com, portaltoascension.org, and ascensionconference.com.
Wow, fantastic. And what's Stephen Greer doing these days? You in touch with him?
Yeah, he's coming out with his third documentary this year. He's crowdfunding right now. You guys can check out his crowdfunding page if you want to contribute to that. But he's coming out with his third documentary. First one was nonstop documents. Hey, everybody, this is real. This is real. Second one is like a little more about the reality behind these extraterrestrials and all the unacknowledged black op projects. The third one is extraterrestrials and consciousness, of how to communicate and connect with them. So he's busy doing that right now. We're probably going to do another event with him, maybe the end of the year or early 2020.
Beautiful. And will you tell, before we let you go, tell all the people that have really had these experiences that they're not crazy?
Yeah, you're not crazy. I've seen some crazy things and heard and known about things that have been proven to me, and I have a really skeptical mind. It takes a lot to make me believe. And I'm at this point where I can't deny that this is happening. The reality and the science behind this, there's enough facts to prove this is happening. There's more information to prove that we're ascending and extraterrestrials exist and our ancient history is not what we've been told than there is evidence to prove the opposite of that that's incorrect. And all you have to do is change your Google algorithm and start searching for the right content, or just come to our website, portaltoascension.org. Best thing, actually, go to Google, type in Portal to Ascension. You can join our Instagram, our YouTube, our Twitter, our Facebook. We're like in a lot of different places, and we always dropping content. So if you want to be around people that are into this and be a part of a community, and then also get the latest of what's happening right now, then come and be a part of any of our online social media platforms.
And man, bless you, brother, because you're really doing a great service here as a portal.
Thanks, man.
Let's have you back a few times. We'll just keep having you back every few months.
Yeah, that'd be cool.
Until our ships come and take us away. It's like, but I'm having fun, man. Leave it. Oh, there's Neil. All right. Ladies and gentlemen, it's Neil Gaur, the Portal to Ascension. There's a link on the page.
Thanks, Paul. I appreciate you, brother.